For people in town, it's nothing. Yeah, yeah.
Moi je suis plutôt pas comme ça. Voilà, ça.
I think it's the same. Everyone's really.
Que c'est un budget de fonctionnement.
Yeah. Have you a big vaccination program? Yeah. Because we have been double gapping. My wife, my daughter is 24, she's had one. My son is 26, he's had one. When we get back Sunday, I think they will probably have both of them. Just make you feel a little bit better.
À l'occasion, il faudra que tu dises que toi, maximum il y a une erreur, c'est au maximum 2 cases. Tu comprends?
Oh, yeah. Say, throwing it away, keep it, so somebody comes in. Yeah, good. Same thing. People say injection is bad. I mean, it hurts, you know, but didn't feel it. I didn't think they'd done it. Did you have an effect afterwards? Did you feel different? Exactly. Me saying, really, really tired of that. Do some sleep. A good sleep, wake up, absolutely fine. Exactly. Yeah. You probably sleep going.
Avec toute l'attitude pour mélanger. Tu insistes sur le vote d'entraînement. Puis l'entraînement partiel suite aux inondations, demande un corps ou l'associé de déplacer et de demander et après si on regarde
I've been told different things.
parler de la qualification de
Something else. This is just confirmed.
C'est que les installations actuelles sont conservées, que ce soit pour la succession, dans la mesure où on voit actuelle. De l'entretenir, de le tenir, voilà.
They stopped the brain tax.
Oui, je sais.
So that's what I was told. He was friends with the guy who told me. Who knows? We will find out. Well, I don't think they'll tell us if you pay anything. Yeah. England has paid so much wages for people for their jobs. 80% they pay their wages. That's what we pay. So everything's going to go up. Everything. It is slightly. Yeah. Let's go. That's right. So did you buy this place or was it your parents? Yeah. Come on, sorry. Maybe you had big
Ah oui, non, lundi matin, c'est lundi matin. Je n'ai pas parlé de ça.
Good morning to everybody and welcome. It's nice to see English faces in such a perturbed time that you actually got here. Well done. First of all, I'd like to give my excuses for certain members of the Admin Council due to family and everything like that. They give their excuse that they can't be here. Monsieur Le Caudet, Monsieur Bouteau, Monsieur Hall, Monsieur Tête et Monsieur Alain Touchat qui est bloqué à Paris à cause de sa santé quand même. Il y a Monsieur Baron, quelqu'un de très... Oh, excuse me, I'm speaking in French. I get confused sometimes. We have, because I was introducing you, we have Monsieur Baron, very important, finance. I'm sure there'll be questions on that. And I'd like to present our elected president, Madame Bouaben, who has worked for the domain tirelessly for 14 years and was instrumental in pushing for the changes that have happened with the old way of administrating the domain. I shall put it like that and rest polite. And of course Benjamin, which I think who everybody knows. So I would like, this is Madame Bouaben's last term. Unhappily, we have the age limit now, and so it makes it her last mandat, so I would like you to applaud her very, very strongly. And thank you for all the work. Okay. I imagine that there are a number of questions which will be taken afterwards. I'd like to, has everybody read the flash that was put on the domain site, I hope? The translation? The last one. June. Okay. I imagine that at that time you read about the death of Ron Fairweather, who was an important member and I believe the first English representative on the domain. Although I do class myself as everybody's representative, I do have the ability to use the French, so that's why I'm here. Okay, so everybody, if anybody hasn't read the flash, I have copies here. Are we okay? And I also have copies translated into English now of the letter from Maître Naoun, which concerns the taxe foncière, the taxe d'habitation. Has everybody read that? Would anybody like a copy? Okay. Yes, they're all there. Oh, can you have that copy? Sorry. No, that's fine. That is just the letter from the Administration Council. The rest of the flash dealt with the general activities and everything else on the domain this year. I hope so, it's mine. The only, the Metronome one, no, I couldn't do that because it has to be legally, it has to be done by someone who understands all the legal terms. I could have done it, but I was afraid of making even the slightest mistake which could have had legal implications. So the responsibility for that, no, I'm afraid I can't accept. So, does anybody want any time to read it? Of course, everybody knows that this year is a year of elections, very important. We have Monsieur Baron, who is representing as for another term. There are in the Sirène, which will soon be published in the Ma, translated. So if you have any questions for that, that might not be answered this morning, you can go to the mat next week before the vote and read it, because it's a quite important Sirène this year, because there are many propositions regarding the way we are proposing voting, the compensation for the people who had the problems with the flood and everything else. Because let's face it, for the last 3 years we've had the floods, world epidemic, and now we've got the tax on our back. So it's, and the Ville de Fréjus, yes. So 3 years, very, very complicated. And I'm happy that I can say that the team that has been in place has worked tirelessly. We've had, apart from the general Conseil d'Administration, which take place regularly, we've had video conferences and everything, because there's been so much going on, it has been inevitable. So I hope the work has been, and I've had a team that have supported me through quite a difficult period of my life. So I would like to thank them in front of everybody. Right, now down to business. For the bulletin de vote, first thing I have to say, which was brought to my attention this morning, apparently there has been a slight mistake made, and before questions are asked, normally you have to put your bulletin de vote in a little white envelope that goes in a bigger brown envelope. This year, the bulletin de vote goes straight into the brown envelope. So don't worry, it's not a problem, it's just all going to be opened exactly the same way. It just cuts out a small process that takes a considerable amount of time. But it's perfectly legal, don't worry about it. But I thought that would be very important. Okay? Don't forget, if you can't vote or you're not here, to pass your pouvoir on to somebody who is here, making sure that your vote counts, because that is very important, that everybody votes, the votes count, and if you don't vote, it's like with governments, you can't really complain. Voting gives you power, so it's very important. It's very important that you read for the new candidates, their profession de foi. I can't read them all out this morning because that's not what I do. Now,
they're all been sent to England. How can we vote? None of us can vote. We're disenfranchised.
no, you're not disenfranchised. No, you're not disenfranchised. They go out recommended post. They sit in your box. They don't get signed for. They go back to the post office, they come back to us, they go down to the bureau, and you can go and collect it. If it hasn't arrived in time, we can provide you with the papers at the bureau. But legally, the SCI has to send. I live here, I live in Paris, mine goes there. I'm here for the summer, so even I can't get that, but it has to follow the process. So you are not disenfranchised. If it doesn't arrive back in time, then we can provide you with the appropriate paperwork. That we legally can do. Okay? So, don't worry, nobody's disenfranchised. Okay.
I've never been able to vote. Every year I'm here, I didn't know that I could get more papers.
Well, that's why I'm telling you now.
Thank you.
So now you do know. It's a shame. It's a shame, but it's now dealt with. So I'm pleased, and I'm pleased to hear that you're so willing to vote. That's the bonus. Okay, thank you very much. I would like everybody. There's the approbation de vote, the compte, the explanation. Monsieur Baron will go through it generally, and I will translate for him. Okay, you have to bear with me here because I'm reading in French, changing and going to tell you in English. Okay. There's an annex for it has to be approved. You have to vote for it. The said accounts were sold with a deficit on the appel de charge. Everybody knows what they are. The 500. So 510,417 and 53 cents, and that's superior to the budget. This will be approved eagerly for the operations that will be resumed in the report.
C'est quoi un co-gérant qui tous c'est l'approbation des comptes, c'est ça qui tous.
Oui.
C'est-à-dire qu'ils acceptent les comptes qui sont présentés.
Okay, words in French. It basically, the co-gérant quitus means that nothing goes through without your approval. The affection. If I can draw your attention to paragraph 8, it actually explains in English. I'll read it to you. What? Right. Finances at my bag. The final reconstitution of the statutory commitments will be done over several years by the provision of amount of 50,000 euros in the budget, to which will be added further surpluses. This does not call into question the financial solidity of the SCE, as its income comes from calls for charges. So the reaccounting results have therefore been modified and now show a deficit of 800,000, and you'll be asked within the framework of the resolutions to transfer this to the retaining earnings account. But as I just explained, this does not mean that there is any precarity in the financial situation of the domain. It is an accounting process which has to be done, which assures the security of the domain, which I think everybody's. Right. It is important to be precise that this is the initiative of Monsieur Pierre Edelblud, who was the President Gérant in 2011, who engaged these statutory provisions that were accounted in the accounts of the SCE from June 2012 with the accord of Monsieur Leventier, who was the commissaire of accounts. Mr. Edelblud gave instructions to the financial director in post for the reconstitution of this over a period of time, but he demissioned in February 2012, and that's the for personal reasons, and his demand was never followed through. It is now being followed through, and it was voted for at the time. It's basically, Monsieur Edelblue was put this forward. The commissaire of accounts, who is the man that looks at the accounts and says yes or no, it's a good thing or it's a bad thing, makes us safe or not makes us safe. This wasn't followed through because he had to retire due to personal reasons, and it wasn't followed through. It is now being put into action. Basically, it was done for the safety of the domain.
So, Jane, can I ask a question? Since that was 2011, which was some 10 years ago, has anything reviewed the amount going into that safety account?
Everything has been fully reviewed since Mr. Baron came into place. That is why, which brings me to an important point on the votes, that we have 2 people up for voting. I'll speak to that in a minute because it concerns a mistake that was made in the Siren. Okay. I presume the admin council decided also to initiate a tax procedure against the Court of Toulon for the VAT. So we're hoping that is in process, because we shouldn't have been. It was found that the VAT that we were paying, we quite possibly shouldn't have been paying. Nobody saw this till Monsieur Baron took over, so now that's a process, and we're hoping, if we're successful, that will mean a reimbursement for the part of the tax. So I'm hoping that everybody will vote the budget through. Very complicated this year. Questions on the budget before we move on to the next subject? Because I have to go through Monsieur Baron and do a translation. Is there anything else you'd like to know about the actual budget at the moment? Everything's been done to make sure we're clear. Okay. The Assemblée Générale will have to take note that the project for the provisional budget of 2022 is an amount of €2,929,601. That is the budget of the functioning of the domain. It is not a budget of investment, and it is 1% of the shares. It counts for 1% of the shares. So this is the first estimation, and it's the object to corrective measures possibly during the year. Yeah. Okay.
I have a question. It's from your audience in England, actually Scotland to be precise. And that is, are we allowed to look at the domains books in entirety?
Of course. No. That's.
You can't see the accounts in entirety. You can only see what the invoices.
It depends on when
I'm not saying this, I know exactly he's an accountant.
we are now straying into the realms of personal protection, which I know that the British are very, very pointed against, not wanting COVID passports and things like that. Okay. We are doing everything we can to make sure that the money accountable for the salaries remains at a correct and proper level, but of course everybody deserves their correct salary, but it remains a private matter that stays within the domain and the administration. I'm afraid there's nothing we can do about that one.
To follow on to that, and also from your faraway audience, is kind of separate from that issue, and that is on the generality of the problems, works, and the taxation situation of the Frasiers and so on. How did the domain not know the works they were authorising were not legal according to Frasier's counsel at the time? How come we got dumped into this position?
Because the previous administration didn't take any notice of their letters.
We can sue.
The one thing I can say is that the works were given out due to with regard to the domain statutes, as opposed to it was after the control that we found out that that was in error. But I can bring you to the fact, which takes me straight to a point which probably will assure most people, is that what you've got you keep, even in inheritance or sale. There will be published, which is not ready yet because it's very, very complicated, but for future works, that's why we've taken a step back on giving permissions for future works, that everybody will have those statutes in place as soon as possible for any future works. But if it assures everybody, you get to keep what you've got.
Further along those lines, this taxation, what does if you're Joe Wells or the French equivalent, what does that actually pay for to someone living in a town? Does it pay for their refuse, for instance?
The taxe d'habitation? Yes.
So can we get that taken off the cost of the...
That's a question I knew would come up. We have got an urban expert solicitor or lawyer on the subject, because obviously that's the domain of Monsieur Le Code, so I can only go into it very briefly. If you want a more in-depth answer, if you would kindly send in an email, it will be translated and then you will get an in-depth answer. But basically, we're in a discussion with them, and they found certain laws, but at present, as I heard Monsieur Le Code explaining the other day, at present we pay in and we get nothing back. Basically because we are not a public domain, we are private, and when you're private the law is applied differently. Yes, but believe you me, we have an expert on the subject, so we're hoping that that might change. But it is a big might.
Just one question on what Barry was on about. Just a quick yes or no answer. Who says we're in conformity and who says we're not now?
Conformity of what?
Well, of the plot. Everybody comes up for sale. We get the service technique, come to the plot, they look round the plot, you'll open ticks, yes or no, right? Now we're paying the tax application and we're paying the tax to the marine. Are we still, have we got to come in line with the office or with the marine? Because I know they tried to get a big mobile home on this plot, and that's why they went to could would that be something to do with it because the domain said no, and they wanted to go on, the domain said?
At the moment, as I've just explained to you, we're accepting existence. There are going to be new regulations that are in the process of being put together. As far as permissions are concerned, at the moment we have to stay within. There may be changes, and until these regulations are published, and it's still a legal process and it's still under discussion, I really can't answer that one. It's an impossible question to answer because we don't actually have the answer at this present moment.
So it's still down to the domain office if you in conformity to say?
No, I have just told you and made it quite clear that what you've got, you get to keep.
Yes, but how about if I'm not in conformity?
My conservatory and my terrace has just been, we've had to demolish.
Can the microphone be passed around to YouTube?
Well,
Right.
Hear the question.
Basically what it is, the regulations of the domain at present have to stand, so therefore any further works have to go through the domain office at the moment, but right, so future works in
L'existe, ça existe, mais soit au nom par rapport à l'élément.
If you sell, we still ask associate to be in to regularize what is not in conformity with the regulation for the domain. What concerns the mairie, we don't ask it to be done.
Right, okay. So what's gone before is gone before. So when we have the Marie's new regulations, if the domain doesn't know what we've got, how are they going to enforce what we've got after?
Are you saying yes or no answer?
Well, I tried that, but I just wanted a yes or no answer. But of course,
Well, they
it went
don't
on
know.
from that. It went on from that.
I cannot give you a yes or no answer to something that is in process. That's the problem that we as an administration are having at the moment as well. But at present, I can give you, yes, you have to follow the domain's rules.
That's all I want.
There's your yes answer.
And after that, it will be the Marie's.
I'm not answering that question because I don't know the answer to that question. Okay. Next question.
People who are viewing this live on YouTube can't hear the audience's questions.
The
So
microphone
did you
needs
need
to
the
be passed
microphone
around.
has to
Yes,
be
my
passed
apologies.
around. They're hearing the answers, but they don't know what the answer is. So it's valid that they're being excluded, so they need to.
Perhaps if you repeated the question.
Yeah, well, I have to read the question.
Tu vois les questions?
Je les entends, oui.
Tu entends?
Pas très bien, mais je les entends un peu.
Well, I will repeat the questions. From here on in, I will repeat the questions.
They say thank you.
Oh. Appreciated. Very much. Anything else on the subject of works? No?
What's happened in my case is that my parents died 2 years ago. I've now taken over as sociétaire, although I'm not sociétaire yet. But because we've had a new van installed, we've had to get rid of everything. So our stone terrace, our conservatory has all had to go at our expense, and the domain have not even given us an area to get rid of rubble. So we have to pay to get rid of all the rubble from the terrace down to Fraser's, and it's costing an absolute fortune.
they're checking out, you know, you can put your van on, so you go take that down, that's got to go, that's got to go.
Okay. First of all, for the disposing of the rubbish, we are big enough to accept it, and any company that does it has to pay, and basically it's not a charge that we can accept. That once again falls under the service technique, the interior regulations, and I can...
And yet, in this last 3 months, 5 vans down for that have just had a land arrest late. But they got in before the mark. So how can this be right? One voice one.
The only thing I can ask you to do for that is to send in an email. I will translate it. I will put it to the administrator in charge of works and get you a full and proper answer. It's not an answer I can give you without having the gentleman in charge of that to try and get to make sure that the finances of the domain are now correct. So they're perfectly consultable, and of course you will be able to read that in all the profession de foi, which is the reasons why they want to become members of the administration. There is Monsieur Baron, who's a candidate that he's supposed to be going at, hopefully not. And 3 other candidates. You'll be able to hear their whys and when the Sirène is published in English, which will be. And very importantly, we have 2 sociétaires who have put themselves forward for the Conseil de Surveillance, which are the 2 people that keep an eye on everything. So they are very, very important. We have Valérie Merlot, another woman, and which again is important, and Jean-Robert Robokis, who has been very instrumental with negotiating with the army regarding the terror, because he is he's the general in the army. So both of which are very strict and keep an eye on things, which I think last year there was a problem getting a committee of surveillance voted in. This year I'm hoping that it doesn't pose a problem because they are important to you. You need them. They're both very professional. In fact, Madame Valérie Merlot, she's a retired accountant, so she will definitely keep an eye on the money side. 2 very important posts to vote for. Please, please, please. Maintenant, l'erreur, the mistake made in the Sirène, it actually says on the resolution number 5, elections for the Conseil de Surveillance, it says cross a maximum of 1 box. It should be 2 boxes. It was an error of typing. That's all. So please, if you decide to vote, hopefully cross both boxes. Now we have present Monsieur Varon, who is a candidate for the elections, who also will be speaking to you in English, hopefully. So he'd like to present himself.
Thank you. Hello. So my English is not so good, so I watched
something. Because I worked in England in 1970, 1971 at Hull General Hospital. Since then, I didn't practice my English, so I prefer to write a little note. So my name is Loïc Warin, with a W. I'm always on the last. Hein? Je suis toujours dans le bas de la liste. I'm 68 years old, and I've been a partner of SCE since July 2012. I've been speaking at every general meeting since 2015 on various subjects, including statutory and financial matters. After a career as a nurse, especially in medical resuscitation, I studied management. I have a master's degree in management of social and medical social institutions. So I directed associative and mutualist old people's home from 1993 to 2013. Managed human resources from 60 to 300 employees, ensured rigorous financial management adapted to needs and expectations, carried out the budget in close negotiation with the departments and the state, created or rehabilitated 4 old people's homes, managed all logistics and crisis situations, and of course the reception and personalized follow-up of residents in collaboration with their families. I note from this that the aim of good management can only be the well-being of those for whom it is intended and for those with whom it is carried out, that is to say, all the staff. It is in this spirit that I am running for director. That's it. So my English is not so good, but please, I do love this domain, and I do love every people, and I will ever do everything I can to help you. That's it.
I think we can thank him for the effort, because there's not very many who will make the effort to speak in English. I'm sure we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, there will be modifications to the statutes. The conditions of eligibility for a administrator, it will be added to it. The management administrators, now because it's a shared task, will be eligible, but they have to be a sociétaire for 3 years on the date of the election. We deemed it that you need really to have a little bit of knowledge of the domain and the people before you can actually represent them. So that's for voting. And which is very important, and they have to justify, and you have an associate now has to justify because in France it doesn't pose such a problem for the English speaking, but now in France that they are doing away with the taxe d'habitation, which poses a problem here. That means that there is no longer, we've always asked for the taxe d'habitation as proof of domicile. We'll now be asking for the tax document of their principal residence, which would be for the English their local taxes, which is council tax. Yes, it was local taxes when I lived there. Thank you. The rates of God. Right. This is done specifically because of the statutes of the domain, and we know that some people do live here all the year, and they're not being, but they will. We have to tighten very much that we do need the reference of a domicile exterior. so that, because there is the rule on the domain that you have to be off the domain for so long per year. It's due to the statutes that we have, which are being enforced now more strictly by the local, by the phrase use and everything, that we are an activity of pleasure. It is a pleasure mobile park and not a domiciliation mobile park. And the next question is going to be, if I'm paying my taxe foncière, why can I not live here? It's a question that's being posed for you by the lawyer. That's as much as I can say about that, because it is in process. Okay. Any questions on that subject?
Where you live, you don't. I don't have to pay council tax because it's. But that's the tax legislation. Yeah. Well. So therefore, I've got to pay. I've got no electricity. What about you? Where do you live? In France.
You don't even have a tax return? The retirement? You have your pension paid in England? Okay. You don't live here all the year, so it really shouldn't be a problem. But if you provide us with your... basically, we need proof of your residence. If it's a government document, then if you send that to us with the explanation, we will note it and that will be accepted.
Okay, but I haven't got any tax papers yet because they are like a year behind and I'm in the throes of.
So you're actually talking about next year? Okay, well then next year we'll send in the documents and that's fine. Have you sent in the appropriate documents this year? No, to France, to here. You've got your macaron? Yes. Well then, it's no problem. Your car is registered here, isn't it?
Yes.
Right. Right. No, the documents that you provided are appropriate. If next year you haven't got your tax documents, provide the same documents again this year. If you send in all the documents that you've got that have your address in England of them, there's very little contestation can be made. The one thing that I do know after so many years of living in France, the more pieces of paper you can provide, the better you are. And if they've all got your official, if your official address is on them, doesn't matter if you're lodged with someone, it's your official address. That is acceptable, because when you have a number of people like this, you're going to have exceptions to the rule. And we are not unbendable. We can assess each case individually where that can be dealt with. Does that satisfy you? Does that reassure you? Okay. Are you? I just want to know you are reassured.
Yeah, yes. That's
Okay.
I mean, my car is registered in France, and I'm paying insurance for the car in France. But like I was
Yes. All we need is the proof of your residence in England. If you don't pay local tax or anything else, and you don't pay you do pay taxes, because everybody does, even retirement people. You might not pay them, but you do a tax return. Even if it's next year, we're talking about next year, you do a tax return. Right, well, that's all you'll need. Okay? Reassured? Please? All I want to know is that you're reassured. If you're not, pose another question. I really need you to go away reassured.
No, I'm reassured, but it's just my whole affairs at the moment is the changeover from one country to another, and it's a bit complicated.
Isn't life in general at the moment for everybody? Don't worry. The situation, just explain the situation. If you need to come to the MA and explain it, I'll sit by your side, we'll go through it. If that means that you're reassured, then that's what we'll do. Okay? If you prefer that to doing it in a smaller, more official capacity, we'll do that. Okay? The main thing is not to worry. And if you're moving from one country to another and papers get boxed and this and that and the other, that's an understandable situation. Anything else on that point? Okay. There will be another modification to the voting system that we're asking you to vote for. Basically, as we promised, certainly when I was elected, that we were modernising the domain and coming into the 21st century. We're hoping that you will vote for electronic vote. It means that you will do the voting online. It isn't with us, it's with a company that is officially certified to do it, but that's what we want to do. Because the vote at the moment, as has been, what we really want to do is that the vote, you will get a code personal to yourself, and you will be able to then vote after the General Assembly. So you can hear the propositions, so you don't have to read them, so that they will be explained to you fully. You will see the candidates before you vote for them, and hear them before you vote for them. And that's why we think that this is extremely, extremely important step for the domain to take. to actually say, oh yes, this is our first experiment in going live. I just want to be clear, you are actually asking if you can see the results of the vote online during... No.
Or even the arguments made by the people can be translated into
Oh yes. Oh yeah, it's been... Oh yes.
But that's much more democratic.
Oh yes, that's why I'm pushing it. No. It's so that everybody can see it and they'll read it, that will be translated underneath. Because English, as everybody knows, it's the general language for a lot of European, and we have a lot of Anglophones, and it's so that everybody gets a chance to see and hear and vote accordingly. It will save a lot of money. So it's both more democratic and economical. Oh no, there are no questions. There are no idiot questions.
Because it's all electronic, Frank and I are going through the various processes online, including trying to speak Irish. Okay? That's a side point. However, we are encountering, maybe it's just because of our age, problems all the time. And what my question is really, is there any fallback if you can't do it electronically? Is there any fallback to do either paper, the old-fashioned way? Slow,
Okay. Well, the answer is that if you have, for those who don't have an email, because the convocation is all being said like that, then you will, you have to obviously write to us, and then the paper version will be sent out. In slightly more it's not complicated, it just needs an explanation. So yes, if you're not connected, you will have the ability to vote. Yeah, there is a fallback, yes. Anything else to the vote?
Last year we were here and we got all this mail stuff in the mail, and we went through it all. We did
Here in that respect. Okay, it was an exception last year. This year the vote is as normal, and then if the vote goes through for electronic vote, and I know a certain number of people, certain people amongst us that are really into computers will be more than happy with that. And I'm sure that everybody will be more than happy to have the capacity to vote after they hear what's going on. Okay. Now, something that's very important, there is another vote for the buying and moving of sociétaires that are involved in the works, either because their plot was ruined. Some of the plots that we have to buy because they basically are in the way of the work. And as you know, when we proposed this, there were three choices of which proposition for the works was taken on, and we proposed the one that we thought was most reasonable. Unhappily, it meant that certain sociétaires had to be moved. That has gone through, the process has gone through, the bornage is done, and everybody's waiting. But there are some sociétaires that are actually in my mind, super generously, do no longer wish to come to the domain and have actually returned their plots to the domain for the astronomical sum of €1. So that's a bonus, but to be able to do this, you have to be in agreement because it's your domain. So you will have to read that. Proposition of compensation has been made. You'll be able to read about that. I haven't actually got the sum in my head, but you have to actually vote to allow us to be able to carry on with the process and to make their moves official. Because what has happened is, under those circumstances, there has to be a direct exchange of meterage. We had sociétés that said, well, can I have a bit more? I'm quite happy to pay. No, legally, we are bound to do an exact exchange. It's all gone through the town hall, so everything is now ready for go. It just needs your official stamp of approval during the Conseil d'administration, the Assemblée Générale. Okay? I imagine that everybody's read about a number of sociétés that haven't been paying their charges. It has been taken in hand. A date was given for regularising the payment, and I think within 10 days the payment came in. $280. So we're squeezing. So not not a sum negligible sum. Okay, so we're on that. Right now.
What happens if you have a holder of the people who still refuse to pay and you're not getting your revenue, but you can't get rid of the plots? It's a burden on the city.
In that case, it's a very long, drawn-out legal process. Because because of the statutes and everything else, and French law, it's a process that you have to go. They have the chance to appeal. Yeah. You then have to, but we have to change the way that we do it then, but it all has to be done legally. Okay? We can't just kick them off. They've outlawed it. I suppose we could install one at the back of here. Any more questions? Anything else on any other subject? Okay. Whew. Thank you for coming. Hope it was understandable. Hope that you carry on and have a super vacation. No, not this year. It's not in the agenda. It's not in the Siren. So no. I can say no. I'm not saying it might not come in the future, but this year, no. Well, what I can explain, because that comes under the heading that's really not my department, but I can give you a brief summary that because we're changing the banks of the river, we've done what work we could do immediately. No, we have budget left. The work that we could do. The other works are subject, because we're changing the banks, it has to go through the environment and nature. So that has put a delay on that side of the works. And secondly, we are still waiting for the answer from the army, because part of the work, the plan, as you know, was to use some of their land, and it is now with the Department of the Army in Paris. So we're waiting, and that's where Monsieur Boukis has come in. With his contacts, it's being booted to the front of the line. So the sooner we can get that done. So that's a brief summary of what's going on there. But the work that has been done was done to assure as much as humanly possible that if we have that phenomenon again, that there will be no damage. Gates have been changed, automatic gates have been put through, more in-depth looking at the cleaning on the army side, higher up the Gonfalon. That is all in hand to assure everybody as much as we possibly can, because obviously the nature is the nature, and as much as we possibly can, that it won't happen again. Yes. Yes. Yes, it's in the work. It was in the plans for what's it? For the whole change. But depending on which system you use, we haven't got the actual final total. Yes.
I came here to find out how much our charge would be for the tax for fair use. That's what we really want to find out.
Okay, you have to bear with me on that because I'm only just understanding it myself.
Oh, okay.
It depends on the meterage. I knew this would come up. I was hoping that was going away with it, but no. Believe you me, it's even complicated reading it in English. The deliberation, it's an d'habitation intermédiaire, which is what we've got. 6 meters at €4, 96 euros the square metre.
Is that the land, not the...
No, it's not the land, it's your actual... So you get... a mobile home of 35 square metres, plus a veranda, a closed veranda, even with an open side for 15 square metres. The total comes to 50 metres. You add your comfort, water and electricity, drainage, air conditioning. These are all, it's worked on like a point system, which comes to 15 square metres in total. The total makes 65 square metres, taken roughly 10% off, to give you 59 square metres everywhere. Okay, you will probably get the bill for both of them at the same time, the taxe foncière and the taxe d'habitation.
Okay. Now, if I have a caravan that has wheels and can be towed, but my caravan is 10 feet in the air, okay, so actually it could be towed off, but it'd be very dangerous, okay, do I have to pay for that? Or has it got to be towed? If it's towable, it's towable, but it might not be.
That's the problem that we've got a lawyer talk. What classes as mobile? If you've got your wheels and you're stuck 10 feet up in the air, you're technically mobile, but with a great deal of difficulty. That is why we've got an expert in urbanism, and it's a question that has to be answered by, when we have the answer, we will let you know immediately.
Okay, if you've got to pay a lot of money for a crane
But-
to come on, how much will it cost for a helicopter?
Believe you me, I've seen that done.
What about the petites? Are they inclusive?
What le pourcentage pour les petits caravanes? Ça, c'est mieux, les petits caravanes.
A little caravan that's a normal caravan is exactly how it came on, towed on by a car, dropped in, put into place, don't even count. If it's in exactly the same state as when it arrived on the domain, it doesn't count, because it's a caravan. It's still classed as a caravan. And that's where the problem has come in, because, as you know, 60 years ago, 60th year anniversary this year, thank you, that's what it was, and everybody comfort and everything else. And to be absolutely truthful, Frazier's Town Hall, they've had their eyes on the domain for years. Anybody that's lived here, been on here for a long time, knows that. It was just the axe of Damocles waiting to fall.
It's quite understandable what they're doing, as you say. But do we, in a commensurate way, get a reduction in our payment to the domain for things that the town hall would do, such as, again, refuse, etc., etc.?
No, I'm afraid the answer is no, because we're private. As I said at the beginning, they want to take money off us, but they don't want to give us anything in return. Believe you me, the fight is on. Because there isn't a sociétaire that is in agreement with that. They're totally with you. The French government have been very generous in the respect of they've taken off, next year they're taking off the taxe d'habitation on your principal residence. But, as everybody knows, any government, they give you with one hand, they take with another. So, in their mind, as far as they're concerned, you have a second residence, therefore, you've got enough money to pay it. And I'm not being funny, it's not just the French government that want to do that. Give with one hand, take more with the other. Oh, bravo.
After 75, you never had to pay tax for habitation. Is there certain things they can do not to pay if you're over a certain age?
Okay, because it's classed as a second residence, no. A house, yes. A caravan, no. It's classed as a second residence. Okay.
Just so I understand, the taxation issue, it's from a problem back in 2012, is that correct? Is it the accounting issue? Wasn't something brought back from 2012?
The change in the way, you mean the change in the way that the accountancy is being dealt with?
Yeah, I understand that there was an issue that they're going back to 2012. and that's where there was a deficit in the fund. Is that correct?
You mean the government tax?
Yes. No, not the government tax. The tax that we're actually having to pay now. Wasn't there a problem in 2012? Or have I misunderstood?
No. If I'm understanding you, you mean the tax that we're being imposed. The charges that the sociétaires pay when they buy Okay. Well, it is actually a problem just of, it's not deficit, it's not anything like that. Basically, when you buy, you had to pay a year in front. That should have been put into a different account. It wasn't. Now it is. So that accounts for the change. It should have been. It wasn't. The question was first brought up in 2012. It wasn't instigated, it is now in place. So that's why there's a difference, but it's not a difference in deficit, it's a difference in, and it also concerns the services of VAT, so that it is now done like that. So that if you sell, you recoup that sum, it's there. Okay. Yes, that's what it concerns. Oh no, it's not domain money. It should have been in a separate account. It is now in a separate account. That's why there was a change in the figures, because it's now being done. Okay? Yes. So now it's accounted for in the budget, so everything is straight and up and above board with it. So you're right. Any more questions, please?
We were charged €1,234 to allow the crane through the Gardiette. Now we were told that was just in case the crane broke any of the water pipes. Now, but where does that money go?
Into your account of the domain.
Normally it would be a deposit and it would be refunded to you if there was no damage.
The problem is we had so many times that the roads themselves were damaged and everything else like that. Basically, it's an imposition that was put in place. There is no reimbursement. Nothing really I can say to that. But, wow. Oh, yeah. Okay. Can I help you up?
Okay, one last question. On Réunion, they are doing, this administration where they go down to where the river is, they've gone from, they've been doing it there.
The passage.
Yeah, there used to be a light. This is being light again on the river. There used to be a light at the bottom by by where the bridge is, or the forward now as it is.
And now it's pitch black.
Well, the light went when the floods came.
Yeah.
Okay. So there must be still wiring there, but the light is not being replaced.
Des questions, il y a pas de lumière. The Hamo delegate, do you have one?
We have, but she's not here at the moment, so we can't ask. And I know there's a Hamo meeting shortly.
Beginning of next week?
Délégué d'Amo, le réunion déléguée.
Tuesday.
She's not here at the moment.
Bon. C'est une question sous la lumière pour le passage de Ferriguli. Le délégué d'Amo n'est pas. She's not here next week. They've got one, but she's not here next week. Okay. Yeah. Just can you put that in the mail to the service technique? They will put Madame Bourdain on copy because she's still dealing with it, and she will chase it. But just to let everybody know, you can have more than one délégué d'Amo. Yes, you can, because it's not uncomplicated, and sometimes they're here, sometimes they're not. So we can do it, if you can find someone else, for example, yourself.
This is like being on the yard doing yard duty and find out you're the team coordinator and the IT
No, you make a very good representative. I really am. I'm positive about that one. But in this present moment, because she's not here, then just send an email to the technical services, because when it concerns security like that, it will boost it. Okay? But the question has been noted. Other questions? Can I go now?
Hi Jane, can I just say a big thank you from all of us to you for all of that translation and taking this all on. It's really, really appreciated. Thank you. And the rest of the guys.
Well, thank you very much for coming. Your presence was appreciated. Okay, have a good day, have a good holiday, and everybody here vaccinated? Oh, don't forget, the 16th, we've got another ball on the, we're hoping, no, we've got the picnics, depending on if anything changes with the government and COVID again. But the same group that was here the other night, the 14th, who were brilliant, by the way, are hopefully, with everything going according to plan, will be here on the 15th of August. Because what you do in July here, you have to do in August. And we have a professional TV magician coming who will be doing the show here. There's a little cost for the... But you do have a parallel system.
Yeah, it's parallel, but it does, they don't talk to each other.
Apparently they're not, yeah. It's all there. It's all
The only
the
thing
fact.
I subscribe to is connection. And apparently, providing you print off paper, apparently in a restaurant and everything.
Getting further.
Well, yeah, but that's what they can use. The restaurant follow the rules, take everybody's QR code and
apparemment, les deux applications ne parlent pas chacun Ils s'inquiètent. On accepte les papiers?
Logiquement, moi je l'ai imprimé.
My question is going to be, are we going to have to show this to get into the restaurant scheme? I thought it would.
And all those up north are going to go, yes, you will.
It's a country, a national vote or a main?
Oh, it's a national.
And it's on Tuesday.
That's why we're waiting for Tuesday before we make a decision.
But it's all in English.
And it's huge. All the government votes to get those on. Oh, that does. The national stories,
Jane, I'll get Ian to send you the link.
Tu as dit le dossier Meyer, fichier,
Bon appétit à tous, et à
ouais.
Charité.
Regardez les conclusions encore une fois de l'avocate. Le dossier Meyer sur Ocre.
Parfait.
J'ai compté sur la maintenance magazine.